All right. So as a company, we've been doing research on different soybean pathogens for over 30 years. And primarily we do this through contract research organizations, can be universities or CROs, as we call them, which are third party. And what I've learned over the years is that measuring severity of white mold can be subjective to the researcher, as there's not one set standard, but this is generally the model that the pathologists and the researchers we work with follow. So what they do is they work on a severity scale of 1 through 5. And I'm going to just go through the scale and give some examples. So of course, off the scale, but just for our baseline, soybeans with absolutely no symptoms, we would call a 0. As we get into it, you're going to start seeing white mold develop on the lower canopy of the soybean plant. And infection starts usually on the main stem and the first nodes. So like in the lower part of the canopy in the photo, this would be called a 1. It's not anything to say the plant is in dire straits at this point, but the plant definitely has been infected. And this is something to watch for because these symptoms are going to increase in the coming weeks. If we were to score it a 2 out of 5 on a white mold scale, basically this is the white mold, the cottony mycelium up and down the main stem and starting to affect the lateral branches, as you can see in the photo. When we're talking about a 3 out of 5 infection, okay, now we see 50% of the plant infected. We see that main stem or stalk, as we also call sclerotinia. White mold is known as stalk rot, so that's eventually what's going to happen with the plants, making them unable to support themselves and senesce early just because the plant's weight makes the plant fall over and the stalks become hollow and full of sclerotia, which we're going to see in a minute. And 50% infection is getting quite severe. We know that things are turning for the worst. As we get into 75% infection, this would be considered a 4 out of 5 on the scale. We actually see stem girdling, and you see infection not just in the lower canopy now, but throughout the plant and spreading to neighboring plants, as you can kind of see in the photo. So affecting the lateral branches, we have stem girdling, we have girdling of the lateral branches. You can see they're turning brown, prematurely dying off. We're seeing the brown leaves and even some symptoms on the main stalk of sclerotia. You can see the black, hard resting structure, which is the fungal culprit that overwinters in your soil and causes white mold in future years. Lastly, 5 out of 5. A 5 out of 5 is a disaster. It's premature death. The stems now have completely rotted. The plants have fell over because they no longer can support themselves. And when you open the stalks are hollow and you can find hard black resting structures. Sometimes farmers call this rat turds or mouse turds, but it's actually the mycelium, when you break them open, is white inside with a black outer hard coating. And that's the portion that overwinters in your soil and will come back to haunt you because that is going to get washed, or as they call it, bleached in the industry, by rainfall over time. It's very hard to get rid of in your soils once it's there. And the cycle basically is going to go from the sclerotia to a mushroom to a spore. The spore is going to infect the plant where the flower is senescing. And then you'll start to see the white mycelium on the stalk go through the 5 stages of severity. And eventually these sclerotia will again develop in new plants and just keep repeating that cycle for future generations. So 5 is basically as bad as it gets. And depending on when white mold sets in, if it sets in early and you have premature death before the pods fill, that's very bad. That's when it's very dusty, hard conditions to harvest. You're picking beans off the ground, and these beans are immature in seed size in the pods. If white mold sets in later in the season, or you don't see the spread and the infection get this severe until later in season once the pods have filled, it's still a nightmare to harvest, but oftentimes yield loss is not as severe. Granted, the beans had more time to develop, to fill, and reach full seed size potential in the pods. So for our research, we always look at doing the severity ratings 2 times. We look just after the R3 into the R4 growth stage. So when the first flowers are starting to fall off the plant and you have an open wound, that's when the spores are going to come into play. And you can start to see the symptoms of white mold, that cottony mycelium on the stalk, about mid-August. So today's August 20th, and we have growers for the last week that have been contacting us, trial collaborators that we work with, and they're concerned about white mold or starting to see symptoms in neighboring fields at this time. We always do 2 ratings, so it's good. Again, a couple weeks later, we do an R5 or an R6 rating. So before leaf drop and natural senescence of the plants, you're going to see more in the canopy at this time, especially from the road. If you're driving by at 60 miles per hour, you're going to see pockets where the white mold plants usually lay in. But the early September gives us a different rating, and we can look at the progression of how fast that white mold is moving throughout the field. It also gives us some indications of, can we harvest this field in a way to not spread the sclerotia bodies, the resting structures, for next year's soybean crop when it goes back to that crop in a future rotation. So sometimes those areas are harvested last where white mold is severe, in a chance, an opportunity to maybe contain the white mold, or look at another biocontrol option that might be effective at colonizing and eliminating the sclerotia from the soil. So it's important we always do 2 timings. Another reason that we like to do that and why this matters is that when we're looking at white mold products, fungicides can be very costly, or heads up, which is an economical way to approach white mold. No matter what you do, you always want to leave a test strip, meaning an untreated check versus your white mold solution that you're trying. And if we're looking at different ways to rate the severity in the season at least 2 time points, we can take notes internally of, okay, how does the infection on a severity scale look in the untreated check versus our fungicide or biocontrol at an early growth stage? And how is that biocontrol or that fungicide holding on? And what is it doing for the development of white mold in the canopy at the later growth stage? So looking at the symptomology can be very valuable as a farmer when you're trying to evaluate product performance. And of course, farmers will always look at yield differences. Yield is what pays the bills. But again, it's very important to look at the severity of white mold in your fields at multiple time points, because that tells you the fitness of the product and the management system you have in place. Looking at incidence is also very important, and something we do in our studies. And that's basically a count. If you take 100 plants out of a plot or a section, and you look at how many of the 100 plants are showing some symptoms of white mold or some symptoms of pathogen infection, you could turn that into a percentage. And that's another good way to do evaluations of a biocontrol or a fungicide product that you're testing, as we're trying to set you up for success. So this is helping to develop the best IPM program you can for your farm. So that's my video on white mold severity. Ratings are on a scale of 1 to 5 generally. and they are subjective from company to company, agronomist to agronomist, but this is some loose guidelines that you could follow as you're looking at your crops this fall. If you have any questions, give us a call. We're very interested to hear from you. We do track white mold throughout the Midwest and use that data basically to do research for our company and our products so we can make better offerings for future. You can reach out to us at 866-368-9306 or on our website at www.headsupst.com. And any of our plant protection specialists would be happy to work with you. Thank you.